If you have a smart speaker, you have access to the entire world of NPR and St. Louis Public Radio. All the latest news and all the captivating stories. Activate our voices with yours by telling your smart speaker to play St. Louis Public Radio.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is Politically Speaking.
Dennis Hancock prevailed in arguably the most important local contest of the 2022 election cycle. By prevailing in the 3rd District St. Louis County Council race, Hancock guaranteed that St. Louis County Executive Sam Page will not have a functioning majority on the council for 2 years. The Fenton Republican joins us on the latest episode of Politically Speaking to talk about what he wants to do on the county council and whether we'll see gridlock or compromise over the next couple of years. Let's hit the music.
This is the Politically Speaking podcast, the definitive show about Missouri politics.
We have to talk about things that matter to people.
I tried to bring that same aggressive iconoclast style with me to the United States Senate.
I think my district is a model for the state.
We put Missourians first.
You just kind of have to find the common ground with people.
I believe that this district deserves someone who represents their values.
After I came back to St. Louis, I started thinking that I could have a bigger role on the change that I wanted to make.
And welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm your host, St. Louis Public Radio political correspondent Jason Rosenbaum. Joining me via phone, he is the winner of the St. Louis County Council's 3rd District race.
I'm Dennis Hancock. I'm the incoming county council representative from the 3rd District.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Before we talk about the race that you ran this year, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do professionally or what you did professionally, what you did in municipal government, and why you decided to get involved in the zany world of St. Louis County politics.
Well, my political career started a little over 20 years ago. I ran for mayor of Fenton in 1999 and wasn't successful in that endeavor, but decided to run again in 2001 and was successful, and then served as the mayor of Fenton for the next 12 years. And then in 2013, decided it was time for someone else to take over, and that I had done my time, and it was left things in a better place than I found them. And then earlier this year, when Tim Fitch was drawn out of the 3rd District, I was approached by some folks to consider running, and after thinking about it, I threw my hat in the ring, and here, as they say, here we are.
So, and the reason this race was so important was that, and obviously, council coalitions are often very fragile and change all the time, but it was widely seen that the winner of this contest was going to determine whether County Executive Page had 4 allies on the council or 4 people that were more critical of him. From talking with you before, you definitely fall more on the side of critical than allied. And so the fact that you beat Democrat Vicki Englund means that we're going to have a very different relationship between the county executive and county council over the next couple of years. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think that, one of the things that I would hope is knowing that he doesn't have 4 votes he can count on for every issue at every time. I would hope that the county executive would move closer to the middle in some of his positions on some of the issues, or maybe we can find some common ground where the council can come together, on things that need to be addressed. I mean, we've got serious issues that are facing us in St. Louis County in terms of things like the budget, RAM settlement, those types of things that are going to require some serious thought and and some real looking into to try and determine what our best course of action would be.
What is fascinating to me as somebody who has followed the county council for a little over a decade is that the 3rd District has not been seen as a close competitive district up until very recently. Why do you think that this race was also very close? I think you only won by 2 or 3 percentage points. Why do you think that this particular county council district is more competitive than it was 4, 8, 12 years ago?
Well, I think redistricting had something to do with that. I think that, and I think just the overall demographics of the county had something to do with it. St. Louis County is trending blue. I think that there are still some significant pockets of conservatives in West County and South County, but here in the central part of the county, I think leans Republican, but it's becoming more and more Democratic, especially in areas around Kirkwood and De Pere and those areas.
So you will be sworn in early January. There's still things that the council needs to do going into 2023. I think the budget is one thing. What are kind of your expectations about what will be the major issues of discussion when you join the council next year?
Well, I think that the RAM settlement is going to be one. We're hearing all kinds of rumors about, how much it's going to be, what it's going to be spent on, what's the possibility. This is really once in a lifetime found money, if you will. And I think that, we owe it to the constituents that we have in St. Louis County to be smart with that money and to make an investment into the future of the county, not use it to solve a budget problem, a short-term budget problem. I think that, at some point in time in 2023, we're going to have to start looking at our budget in 2024 and beyond and figure out what we can do to solve the systemic budget problems that have been present in the county for well over 10 years. And, what can we do to solve those problems? And, what does that mean? Does that mean we have to look at reducing services? Does it mean we have to look at how we deliver those services? There's a lot of different approaches there. One thing that I'm pretty confident that I can say, without sounding too much like George Bush, is I have no desire to raise taxes on the residents of St. Louis County. So I don't see that as a viable option as far as solving the county's budget issue.
If County Executive Page puts forth some sort of hypothetical tax increase, wouldn't that go to the voters first, or would that be something that the county council would accept or reject before it goes into effect?
My understanding is that there is room in the county's current property tax structure that the county is not at its cap in terms of property taxes. So there is room to maneuver the tax rate between where it is now and what's been approved by the voters. To me, that's not the appropriate thing to be looking at. I think that voters or the taxpayers in St. Louis County are paying plenty in property taxes. They're paying plenty in sales taxes, and I think we just need to look at what are we spending that money on, and are there ways to reduce the outlay of capital versus looking for new sources of revenue. I know when I was the mayor of Fenton and we lost Chrysler, we took about a 15% hit in our annual budget on the revenue side. But we didn't look at raising taxes at all. We looked strictly at the expenditure side. We're able to reduce our budget by the appropriate amount, and we're able to still function as a government and still provide the basic services that our residents are entitled to.
So let's talk about something that you mentioned before, which is the RAM settlement. I'm pulling up an article from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that came out on November 10th, 2022 by Jacob Barker. And the board that oversees the Dome at America's Center has voted to put the $500 million basically in an investment account. And I think that they are recommending that instead of spending all that money right away, they wanted to create interest, and they want to use the interest from that $500 million for, and I'm quoting here, to maximize the community benefit and have a transformative, multi-generational economic impact on the St. Louis region. What do you think of that general idea?
I think this is, one-time money, and I think that parking that money in an account that's going to draw a higher rate of interest than where it was is probably a good idea in the short term. As far as long-term use of the money, my concern is, who's going to determine what that use is? Who's going to determine where that money goes? Is it, is this another layer of government or quasi-government entities that we're going to have to, put together, and then who controls them? Who are they responsible to? As an elected official, I'm responsible to the citizens of St. Louis County. I don't know who an appointed board is accountable to, except other politicians. And so, to me, I think we need to figure out, if there is a long-term regional need that needs to be addressed, such as, I know one example was the airport, and the upgrades to the airport. Are there other regional infrastructure needs that can benefit the entire region? And I know that the city is of the opinion that they should get the lion's share of that RAM settlement. I suspect the county's probably thinking they should be getting a big chunk of it. But the region is much bigger than just St. Louis and St. Louis County. There are a lot of needs in the region that I think we can look at. Where does that money go? And if that means some sort of a, for lack of a better term, a blue ribbon commission made up of people from the city, people from the county, people from surrounding counties, I'd be open to that.
Yeah, and the board that made this decision is the RSA, and it includes several appointees from the mayor of St. Louis, the county executive, and then from the governor. So it's kind of like a multifaceted board. Are you not confident that that sort of entity can oversee this money that is put into the investment account?
Well, the concern I have is who's on that board 5 years from now, and how are they appointed? And I think that when we start ceding government responsibility to appointed boards, we can get ourselves in trouble in a big hurry. Like I said, as an elected official, I'm responsible to the voters, and I have to stand before the voters every 4 years and make my case. If I'm appointed to a board or a commission, and I don't have to explain to the voters why I'm doing anything, that gets a little bit, because in reality, this is the taxpayers' money that we're talking about at the end of the day. And I think that the taxpayers should have representatives on these commissions, or on this commission or any other commission, that would be accountable to them.
Do you have any specific ideas about where you would want this RAMS money to go?
Well, like I said, I think the airport is one. As anybody who's flown in and out of St. Louis, over the last 10 to 20 years, our airport doesn't measure up to other airports of similar size and similar traffic. And I think that, we've seen and heard from enough of our business leaders over time that would indicate that the St. Louis airport is a detriment to attracting new businesses here and new employees here. I think we need to look at our educational infrastructure, our schools, our universities. I think we need to look at, what are the needs there to attract the workforce of the future. And I think we need to look at, is there a need on the economic development front to attract, come up with a strategy for marketing St. Louis, not just a slogan, but a real marketing plan to attract businesses and retain the businesses that we currently have. We heard in the last couple of weeks that both Centene and there's another one whose name escapes me at the moment. Emerson are both looking at possibly other locations for their headquarters. And so I think we have to, look at why are they considering leaving, and if we can get them to stay, if we make the right investments to get them to stay, maybe we can then market that same approach to other businesses that aren't here. Maybe this isn't a bad place to be.
And keep in mind, like, the $500 million is not going to all go to the city and the county. Some of it is going to go to the entity that maintains the dome, because they were part of it as well. Do you think that the amount of money that is available to use is really enough to do major things for the airport, or to convince an entity like Centene or Emerson to stay here?
Yeah, I think it certainly could be a nice down payment. I think it's going to take a concerted effort on the part of county officials and city officials to really look at the issues that are surrounding St. Louis City, and the crime issues in the region, and those sorts of things. And what can we do? Can we use some of this money to address some of those issues? Because I think what people are concerned about is that it's all going to go into the city, and then 10 years from now we're going to wake up one morning and go, what happened to all that money? And we don't have anything to show for it. And I think that we need to understand that the city is the region's problem to solve. It's not just the city's problem to solve. And so, because the city affects the region, and it affects not only St. Louis County, but it affects St. Charles County, it affects Madison County, it affects the counties on both sides of the river. And I think we have to recognize that and do what we can do to make sure that the city is successful, that the county is successful, that surrounding counties are successful. And if we can do that, then everybody wins. But I think it's going to take a long-term vision. I think it's going to take a long-term investment to do that.
We'll be right back on this episode of Politically Speaking with Dennis Hancock. And we're back on Politically Speaking with Dennis Hancock. After January 2023, he will be the 3rd District St. Louis County Council councilman for a district. We didn't talk about what the district actually entails. Can you just explain to our listeners what cities you're going to be representing on the council?
Sure. Yeah. If you look at a map of St. Louis County, basically the district is sort of in a rectangular shape, going from the Jefferson County border up to Olive, and then on the east side, just a little bit east of Lindbergh and Kirkwood Road, and then on the west, a little bit west of Highway 141. So kind of that south central chunk of the county, if you will. And that includes cities like Fenton, Kirkwood, Valley Park, Town and Country, parts of Creve Coeur, a little sliver of Chesterfield. And so it's there are a lot of municipalities that are part of the district, as well as a fairly sizable amount of the district that's unincorporated.
So let's talk about public safety and crime. It's my understanding that Fenton, for example, uses the St. Louis County Police Department for its police service, as does a number of cities throughout the county. But there are also some municipalities that have their own police departments in the 3rd District. What's generally been the feeling about how the county police department is operating now, and what sort of things need to be done to make sure that it's operating at its best?
I think that, overall the perception of St. Louis County Police is pretty positive. I know in our case in Fenton, we first contracted with St. Louis County in 1995. And so we're going on nearly 30 years now of our contractual relationship with St. Louis County. And it's cost-effective way of doing business. We're shielded from some of the things that smaller municipalities with their own police forces tend to deal with. Where you have as I used to say, and this is nothing disparaging on small police forces, but when you have St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and other entities trying to attract recruits from the police academies, well, the bigger police forces that pay better are going to get the better choice of recruits. When you get down to some of these small cities that don't pay very well, I think that the quality of the policing they get is lesser, and I think that there are a lot of examples around over the years of where local police officers have done things they shouldn't have done. You don't hear a lot of that coming from the St. Louis County Police Force. I think that they're well trained. Their leadership is top notch, and I think that we should be very, very happy that we have the caliber of a police force that we do here in St. Louis County.
It's been about 5 years since county residents approved Proposition P, which was a 0.5 cent sales tax for public safety. I remember pretty vividly that then County Executive Steve Stenger said this was going to be transformative for public safety in St. Louis County and the region. But I look at crime statistics, and it doesn't really seem like putting more money toward public safety writ large has caused crime to go down substantially. Is it time to maybe just admit that Prop P hasn't really worked as intended, and maybe it's time to think of other ways to spend that money that's coming in to the county?
I think that, part of the issues that, we had, and, Steve Stenger was one of the issues that we had. And I don't want to relitigate that whole thing. But I think the fact that we've now broken ground on a couple of new police precincts that will help house our police officers, give them state-of-the-art facilities to work out of. I think that helps. I think that there are things that that need to be done. I think one thing that would be very helpful would be to standardize the radio dispatching that's done amongst all of the law enforcement agencies as well as fire departments in the county onto the same frequencies, so that they could talk to each other in the event of a large scale disaster. That today they can't talk to each other without calling somebody and saying, "Hey, call somebody over here," and then it's not efficient. So I think there are things like that can be done with the Prop P funds as well. As far as adding police officers, I think that a larger police presence helps reduce crime. I don't know how it doesn't. I think that if someone is, I know that there's a lot of discussion around reallocating resources and putting more emphasis on social services as opposed to law enforcement. But the reality is, until we get crime under control, and I'm not talking about taking it to zero, because I don't think we'll ever get there. But I think if we can at least keep it from expanding, and find a way to reduce the need that people feel to commit crimes, and part of that comes in with economic development and jobs. If somebody's working and has a full-time job and can support their family, they're not going to go looking for easy money. If they can, have access to a better education, I don't think they're going to be as likely to look for a life of crime to support themselves. I just think that when we're talking about reallocating resources or using the defund the police mentality, I think that most people are of the mind that if somebody's pulled a gun on them to just take their wallet, really care if a social worker shows up or not. They want a police officer. And I think that, the other thing that we need to recognize is that crime is a regional problem. It's, just because we have rivers and bridges doesn't mean crime can't cross those rivers and bridges. And we see it all the time. I mean, my wife's car was broken into on our driveway one night. And we live in what I think most people would consider to be a pretty safe area. But it's those are the types of, people are being affected all over the county by it. And so we need to address that.
Well, you actually transitioned into another question I was going to ask anyways. I know that merging city and county has been kind of a hot third rail issue for like 100 years. But one of the things that seems to make some conceptual sense is better cooperation between the city police and the county police. And I don't know if that includes like literally merging them into one entity, but would you like to see more standardized and more working relationships between those two entities, given that, as you mentioned, crime doesn't just stop at the city-county border?
Yeah, I think there are probably things we can do. I don't know, if we want to go down the road of a merger of city and county police departments or public services or any of that stuff. I think that there are things that are being done cooperatively, and I think there are probably some more things that can be done cooperatively. One of them, again, is this notion of giving them the opportunity to at least communicate directly with each other. I think that would help at least to coordinate efforts on some of these things. I think that having the notion of police chases is always a double-edged sword, because so many the criminals don't seem to care that they're being chased by police officers, and they're going to create as much havoc as they can trying to get away. And so a lot of innocent people get pulled into those types of things with so I think that's a thorny issue to address, but it's one that I think could be done on a regional basis. I think that we have to look at what's the benefit for everybody involved to doing that, to doing some sort of a departmental cooperative agreement, if you will, as opposed to an outright merger of the two. I'm not sure politically how you would or logistically how you would pull that off.
Yeah, I think that especially since the demise of Better Together, there has been some talk about St. Louis City joining the county as a municipality. I think that some people bring up that idea as, oh, this is just an easy idea that can just be done without much trouble. And I think that is wishful thinking, because that also includes like merging a lot of departments in the city into the county. So, for example, the city and the county have separate recorders of deeds, so you would have to merge that entity into one. Same with like revenue collecting and a whole bunch of other things. But I could see some benefit to the city of doing that, because then they would be within a larger entity that could maybe channel more resources to deal with some of the problems there. But what's kind of your general thought about that idea?
Well, I think there are several different things to consider in any sort of discussion around the city and the county. First of all, the city actually is a county as well. It's its own county, and it has its own county offices, such as the sheriff and the courts and those sorts of things. So that all has to be addressed as well. It's not just, the city now is part of the county. I think that, as far as the mechanics of doing it, I think that my personal opinion is the city would become, as presumably it would become, 90th municipality in the county, which means that it would become part of the sales tax pool, which means that it would pull the lion's share of the sales tax revenue that currently is going to a lot of the municipalities in St. Louis County. So I think that, from a practical perspective, I don't think that would work very well. And I think that there would be a huge amount of opposition, both from residents of the city and residents of the county, to making that happen. So I really don't think that it's likely that that's going to happen anytime soon.
And also, the other thing that you would probably have to do is you would probably have to make the county council larger, because it seems like, you could probably still have a 7-person county council with the city in it, but that's awfully small, and that would mean that you all would be representing districts that are 200,000, 250,000 people, which would be pretty unprecedented throughout the state.
Well, and as a Republican, not to bring partisan politics into it, but basically, if you bring the city in with the political demographics that would come with it, the county would never see a Republican or any sort of Republican input into any council decision or into the county executive's office ever again.
Yeah, but to be fair, it doesn't seem like Republicans are going to win countywide races anyways. We just saw someone like Sam Page, who has a lot of detractors, and he still ended up winning, I don't know, by 5 or 6 percentage points. I'm not seeing a path for Republicans to win countywide races unless you have another opinion about that.
Well, I think that my sense is you have to look at what else brought people out. And, I think legalizing marijuana had a big impact on the turnout. I think it had a big turnout, big impact on the side of those folks who are probably of a more liberal persuasion, and they tend to vote Democratic. I think that I think the right candidate in the right circumstances, meaning that the sun, moon, and stars all align, I think it's possible. The Republicans have come close several times in the last 10 years or so. Bill Corrigan was close when he ran. Rick Stream only lost by 1,500 votes when he ran.
Right.
And so I think the right candidate could could bring a coalition together of centrist Democrats and centrist Republicans and actually pull it off.
My final question, though, it does involve what happened with the Republican situation for county executive, because I think Mark Mantovani did as good as he possibly could under the circumstances, but the brutal truth is, anybody who gets the nomination for something like county executive with 50 days, 45 days, a very short amount of time, was always going to have a lot of limitations. And I look at what happened in that primary where Shamed Dogan lost to Catherine Pinner, and Catherine Pinner was clearly not a viable candidate, yet Republican primary voters still voted for her. Do St. Louis County Republican voters writ large have issues with strategic decision-making?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of pieces that went into what happened there. I think part of it was that Shamed could have run a better campaign. I think that he did not see Catherine Pinner as a viable competitor, and I think he didn't spend hardly anything realistically on his campaign, and I think that was a mistake. I think Shamed would have been an excellent candidate for us to run with. I think that there's an element in the Republican Party, and it's not just in St. Louis County, it's everywhere, who are going to look for someone who is not just, is a small government person, but is a no government person. And I think that Catherine Pinner may have tapped into some of that. I think that, I think that Mark Mantovani, given the circumstances, was probably the best candidate we could have possibly come up with.
Yeah.
And I think that he, for him to get as close as he did in the short period of time that he had to put a campaign together and raise money and do all the things you have to do as a candidate, I think it was an outstanding effort on his part.
Yeah, I was going to say if Catherine Penner had not withdrawn, and Mark Mantovani did not step in there and force Sam Page to spend money on his own race as opposed to your race, do you think you would have won? Because I think you would have lost if Catherine Penner was the nominee.
Well, the last reports I looked at, my opponent had nearly 5 times the money that I had in the campaign. So I don't know how much more they could have possibly spent, but I think that the fact is, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. I think good candidates, with the right messaging and the right appealing to the right voters, I think they can win, and I think that had a lot to do with my victory. As someone who said from the beginning, you can't be a candidate if you don't have an ego, just because you're telling everybody that you're the best person for this job. But I think that you have to be able to separate yourself from that ego and position yourself in a way that you can appeal to the broadest possible group of voters. And I think we were able to do that. I don't want to say we didn't have enough money. We got enough money to get our message out, which is really all you need to do. And so, more money on my side wouldn't, the message still would have gotten out, and it would have been exactly the same message. So I'm not sure, how much more money would have made that big of a difference. But it was nice to know that at least, the county executive had to pay attention to his race.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back when you are actually in office. Politically Speaking is a product of St. Louis Public Radio, which is a part of the University of Missouri St. Louis. You can follow me on Instagram at Jason Rosenbaum. You can also follow me on Twitter, if Twitter still exists, on J Rosenbaum. Is there any social media apparatus that you would suggest that people follow to follow your adventure through county government?
Well, I'm an old guy, so I'm still on Facebook.
Facebook is not collapsing in on itself because I guess its billionaire owner is not trying to make huge changes to it impulsively right now.
Right.
But
right.
That is another story for another day.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is Politically Speaking.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.